Hi, my name is Drew. I'm going to be walking you through the Aliner Scout Lite today. Starting right up front here, we're going to go over the loading and unloading process. We have your coupler here. This is sitting in the unlocked position. So from here, we're going to raise this jack 3 inches above our ball and drop. We are then going to center ourselves underneath that coupler, of course lowering the jack back down on top of that ball. Once we're fully seated and the weight is on that ball and drop, we go ahead and lock this back. We are paying special attention here that this secondary latch is engaged there, effectively keeping that locked back. I always go back, give it a pull, make sure it is in fact fully locked on. From there, it's going to be my recommendation you go ahead and use a secondary pin to lock this back. That's going to go through these two holes. That's going to keep this from potentially rattling loose going down the road, inadvertently becoming disengaged. Can also serve as a security lock as well if you choose to utilize one that has the lock and key option. So with your coupler sitting on top of the ball and your latch in the locked position, we can go ahead and run this jack all the way up to the resting position. At that point, this wheel needs to come off. You're going to remove the spring clip. So it is just a spring clip. You pull that out, swing that locking bar out of the way, remove the wheel, stow in your the bed of your truck, the tailgate of your SUV, whatever. Get that out of the way. From there, tow chains are to be crossed underneath the coupler. It is state law in Texas that these chains cannot make contact with the pavement at any given time, and that they do need to be crossed underneath the coupler. So biggest thing is that you're going to want to skate that line of having enough room to make your turns left or right, but not so much room that they do make contact with the pavement. Riding right next to those chains, it is very important that we have this emergency breakaway cable hooked up properly. Now your emergency breakaway cable is your last line of defense. So if these other tow components were to fail as those two vehicles separated, it's going to pull this cord out of the actuator like a ripcord, effectively locking up the electric brakes to avoid a runaway camper scenario, something like that. So proper connection to the receiver is very important, and what we are going to be looking for is 3 connection points between the tow chain hooks and the emergency breakaway. So tow chains crossed underneath the coupler, hooked onto the receiver, your emergency breakaway riding right alongside those. You of course are going to need to utilize a carabiner, quick link, something like that to make that connection. Here we have your 7-way receptacle. This is going to give you full function to your vehicle's braking system, tow lights, charging system, things like that. This is of course going to plug into the corresponding receptacle on your bumper. Very straightforward. Moving up here to your battery. This is an interstate deep cycle battery. It does carry a little bit of maintenance. What that's going to entail for you is 2 or 3 times a year we're going to go ahead and pull these vent panels. We will refill with distilled water as necessary. So underneath these vents we're going to find a clear marked water line. It is of course just our goal to maintain that water level. For periods of long-term storage, not a bad idea to physically disconnect these terminals or add a battery disconnect switch within the system. That's going to help keep any nominal or phantom draws off of that battery. So keep that in tip-top shape. You do have an inline fuse here in this wire loom. Just keep in mind if you have any reliability issues with the unit, that more than likely that could be a culprit there. So something to keep in mind there. Moving on here to the side of the unit, we have a Zamp Solar style plug. This is just going to help accommodate any portable solar panel that you may have, any portable solar option. Essentially a plug-and-play connection to the battery, so you would make your connection here, take your panel out into the sun. That would allow you to take advantage of any solar energy that you'd like to. Down low here we have your drain outlet. That is corresponding with the sink drain on the inside. No gray water holding tank within these units. It just makes this transition through the floor and makes a 90-degree out here. Now you can reduce that down to a garden hose style fitting. That would be helpful if you want to route your water away from your campsite. You want to catch it in a bucket or a receptacle. Very easy to do so with that. Tire pressure and lug nuts, very important thing to talk about. These lug nuts have been torqued to 100 foot-pounds here in our shop. That is the manufacturer's recommendation. Manufacturer also recommends the retorque procedure with those lug nuts. That is the first 10, 25, 50, and 100 miles of initial travel. The manufacturer recommends that you pull over and you retorque those down to 100 foot-pounds. Manufacturer further recommends that at the start of each trip thereon after, we do check to make sure they are maintaining that 100 foot-pounds of torque. Tire pressure is also very important with trailers. With all trailer tires, you run them at the max tire pressure rating. That is stamped in the sidewall of the tire in the traditional location, as well as on the data tag here. So you have 65 PSI tire pressure rating there, and that's exactly where we want to run them. That's going to give us the highest flexibility in terms of weight. Whether we are completely full or completely empty, that 65 PSI is going to be a great number. Freshwater connection here, very important. Water pressure becomes very important when we talk about a city water connection here. These units are generally rated for water pressure anywhere between 40 and 75 PSI, so it's very important that we do not exceed that 75 PSI limit. We are going to reduce that water pressure with a regulator. This water pressure regulator in particular keeps that pressure in between 40 to 50 PSI. Generally, that's enough for most people's needs. Now we're going to hook this water pressure regulator directly onto the water source as opposed onto the trailer connection. So we want to protect our hose, and we want to keep as much weight off of these trailer-bound connections as we can. So screw this right onto the water source. We then screw our hose onto the water pressure regulator. And lastly, we make our connection here to the camper by rotating this hose barb on the camper, something like that. Very straightforward. Always want to run with a water pressure regulator. Again, these units are not rated to run without a water pressure regulator for any amount of time. If this gets lost, damaged, stolen, make sure you replace it. Anywhere with an RV camping aisle is going to have a replacement water pressure regulator, and I can't stress enough the importance of running with one. 30 amp power supply here, only plugs into the camper one way. If we go ahead and take a look at that plug, we have one L-shaped receptacle and 2 slots. If we line everything up accordingly, it's going to plug straight in. We'll give it an 1/8 inch turn to the right, that locks it in. Then we do have a secondary collar to screw down and lock it in further. Very easy to make that connection, and it is a very secure connection. Now, a lot going on within these units electronically, even a small unit like this. Very important to protect those electronic appliances that we do use a 30 amp surge protector. That's the only way that you can effectively protect your unit from substandard wiring, dirty power, surges, things like that. So with any surge protector, they hook directly onto the power source. We then hook our cord into that, our power supply into that, and then again we make our trailer connection here just like we talked about. Definitely going to be our recommendation. If you have any questions on which products to look at, which products we recommend, feel free to give our parts department a call. They would be more than happy to educate you further on the proper use and recommendations of a surge protector. Now here on the rear of the unit, we have 2 stabilizer jacks on each corner. Very important that we do run those down anytime anybody is inside the unit. These are for stabilization, they're not for leveling. So leveling from front to back is going to be done with the main tongue jack. Leveling from left to right is going to be done with the tires and what's called a leveling kit. So once we are within level, we're then going to run these down. We're of course going to use the included crank handle to do so. We line it up there on the spline. Again, we come down, make contact with the pavement, maybe a 1/4 turn more just to shear everything up. You don't have to go crazy with it. These are going to stay in better shape longer if you opt to use a light touch in both directions with those. Tail lights, license plate holder, things like that, spare tire. When we do go ahead and change a tire, we're going to want to put our jack directly on the axle as close to the tire as we can without it interfering into our work. This unit does not have a jack on board. and does not have a lug wrench on board. So you're going to make sure that you have those with the unit, again, before going down the road in the event of an emergency situation. Coming around here to this side, we have your, really basically things we've already seen, but we have your air conditioner here. It's on and running. I'm going to poke my head in here and turn it off so we can go ahead and put this bag on and see how that goes. So with that in the off position, we're going to go ahead and put this bag on. Now this bag protects the unit while going down the road, keeps you from getting any road debris or anything like that within the unit. So these are really a tight fit generally, so you got to kind of inch it on there. Once you're on there, you just line up the snaps, go ahead and snap it down all the way around. That's going to be enough to hold it on while going down the road. Again, very important that we have this on going down the road, but more important than that is to make sure we remove it before turning on the air conditioner. I've seen it before, it has happened, so it will burn up that air conditioner, effectively ruining it. So before turning that on, make sure we go ahead and undo the snaps, go ahead and pull this off, store this wherever, but again, make sure that air conditioner can breathe when it is running. Little light here, switch is right there on the fixture, no big deal, just a little amber colored light. Step is going to be up and in, and then up and out. So very straightforward stuff. Just about covers it here on the outside of the Scout Lite. We're going to hop on the inside, take a look at that stuff, then we're going to tear it down, put it back up, show you all the fun stuff. All right, so here on the inside, we got your fire extinguisher here. Very important that we do inspect that gauge there, make sure that we do have pressure within the unit. As long as it reads correctly on the gauge, that means there's pressure, that means it's good to work. It's going to assist you in extinguishing a fire. Also, another piece of safety equipment is going to be your smoke alarm up top. That's a standard 9-volt smoke alarm. We do want to push that test tab every time before we take the unit out, make sure our battery is good. Of course, not a bad idea to bring a spare battery with you in the event that it starts to run low on your trip. On-off switch here is for the light, the door light. It's going to light the way if you're coming in the unit at dark time. We also have some cabinet storage here on the underside. Very effective use of space. Very straightforward stuff there. Coming in the unit, lights on each side. Switches again going to be right there on the fixture. So very basic, very simple, very user-friendly. Pull up shades, so they pull up from the bottom. That's going to be your privacy option there. We have your fantastic fan up top here. Very important that we unlock that first. That's going to be directionalized to the right there. Then we go ahead and crank this up. From there, we need to choose a direction as well as a speed. So if this were on 0, we would have to confirm a speed and a direction before we're going to get power. You also have a 4 amp bus style fuse there. If you have any reliability issues or this ceases to work, check that fuse also. Not a bad idea to keep a spare within the unit in the event that you need one. Air conditioner here. Now we have your power button there. Of course, make sure that you do remove that bag. Again, a friendly reminder. You have full control over this. So you have different modes, dehumidifier option, fan, energy saver, cool. Those are all going to be utilized through that mode button. You have timer, thermostat within the unit, fan speed, things like that. Ultimately, endlessly controllable. A very nice window unit. Is going to function just like most window units that you've probably had some experience with in the past. Coming here into the kitchen. Of course, your sink is here. To turn it on, it's just going to be pushed up towards the window. Of course, we don't have this unit hooked up to city water, so we're not seeing any water there. But that on position is going to be up there. Turning around here, if we momentarily look here, we have your GFI resettable outlet. If that amber colored light is on, that means it's been tripped and you no longer have power running to the receptacles since they are all in the same circuit. We reset it like I did. As long as you don't see a light there, you're good to go. All same things we saw up front here. Light, pull-up shade, very straightforward stuff. I'm going to talk about the converter, and then we're going to go ahead and make this into a see the setup for making this into a bed. Now, if we look here at the converter, everything there on the right side is going to utilize a replaceable 12-volt automotive blade style fuse. You can source that from any auto parts store. And again, going to be my recommendation to keep some spares with the unit in the event that you need one. On the left side of that is going to be your breakers. You only have a few of those. Those are resettable breakers. Same variants you're going to find generally in your breaker box at home. Things in terms of function should be clearly marked within the box. It is very straightforward with those. Now, this is a standard pedestal style table, so very easy to use. What we're going to do is separate the pieces. So we separate the tabletop from the base and pole. So it can be difficult. It is a friction fit. Most people I know, when they're sitting at a table, they kind of sit with their elbows on it, kind of compounding the issue when it does come to make this into a bed. Now, if you're lucky, you can separate the tabletop from the pedestal first, but oftentimes you're not that lucky. If that happens, you can feel free to turn the table upside down and then kind of, again, kind of rotate this or wiggle that until you free that up. So we're going to move those out of the way. A lot of times people will store that underneath the bed area here, but they are not utilized in the process of making this a bed. Instead, what we're going to use is these slats, and you have four of these slats here. So it is a nice tight fit, so make sure everything is kind of moved out of the way. Make sure you're lifting up at a nice even pace to get those up, and we're just going to evenly space these out here. And I'm only going to do two because my legs are here in the way, but the other two would of course be right here in line. And again, we're going to evenly space those out. And then we take these two rear cushions and we lay them out as well. So you have a cushion there, and of course this cushion would go in the place where I'm standing. And then of course if we had the other two slats, everything would be in line to make a bed. So going to take a little bit of imagination there, of course, because of the limited space within the unit, but you get the point. It is going to make a very usable sleeping space here. Now we move that cushion out of the way. We put these back in their home. Effectively replacing the table base to its location. Wiggle it in there nice and tight. And then again, we put the tabletop on there. Very easy to do. So windows, they do have the locking tab here, so we go ahead and unlock them. That is going to allow you to go ahead and slide that open for use. Now that's going to be only this window. The only other window that opens is going to be this, and this is going to be kind of the school bus style window where you slide these spring tabs up and then open it that way. Now we're going to talk about how to close the unit down. So a couple things we need to do. We are going to be bouncing kind of inside and out to disengage the wind protection, things like that. So number one, turn the lights off, give them enough time to cool down, especially if they've been on for a long period of time. We're going to turn those off. We're going to make sure everything, including the cushions, is below the hinge line. So we got to fold those down. Tabletop is fine the way it is. Make sure your windows are locked. And then we're going to go ahead and step on the outside. So we have the wind protection engaged on this unit. That is these bars here. That effectively locks these two panels together. This is to aid also when setting it up so it doesn't catch wind. It gives you a nice firm grip on that roof panel, again, when setting it up. So we'll see that when we kind of put it up, but when we are taking it down, we remove that spring clip. We're going to move this over to the other side. We're going to do the same here on this side. From there, we're going to head back inside. So now that we're here inside, I'm going to start by unlocking the wall panels. Now this one was already unlocked for some reason, but this side, the driver's side of the unit, always comes down first. It's very, very important. This side always comes down first, and then this side folds on top of it. There's nothing holding these sidewalls up other than these latches. So it's very important that once you unlatch them, that you do keep a firm grip on them. You may have a gust of wind that comes through, knocks it out of your hand. If you're in the way of that, it is pretty heavy. If it bonks you on the head, you're going to regret it. So we're going to disengage these rear latches. Once we've done that, we're going to then come here to the front latch of this side. And again, if I take my hand off of that, it's going to fall down. So make sure that you are supporting that wall panel tightly. So once I do that, I got to come over here and unlock this wall panel. Very important that we unlock the door first. If I try and put this passenger side wall panel down without unlocking this door, it's going to damage that wall panel. So what I do is I kind of sit in this position and I unlock it. So I unlock it here, and then I kind of reverse so I can get a handle on this door, and I go ahead and set it down around me. So if it's me by myself at this point, which it is, I'm going to pop that roof panel loose from the inside here. So I push up as close to center as I can. That's going to spring that loose. There's bungees that keep this from coming down and hitting you in the head, so you don't have to worry about that. But once you've done that, we're finished up here on the inside. We close this. We make sure we close this door. Make sure we close this door. And then I start here at the rear of the unit, making sure these latches are out of the way because they can get pinched. So I'm just going to fold that one there on that side down. And then I just follow the roof panel up till I get to the other roof panel, and I bring that down on top. From there, I open these latches up because they are in the longest point when they are flat. So I put that there on the corresponding latch, and I snap that closed. Then I'm going to walk over here to the other side. Again, helping the wall panel down, spreading the latch out, and doing the same thing there. That's how you close it up. Very easy. Once you get the hang of it, it's going to take you 5 minutes or less. Super, super user-friendly, super easy to do so. So now we're going to go ahead and put it up. Word of caution, very much like this sticker says, you do have to be cautious when you are putting this up. If it is windy, I'm going to show you where you're most vulnerable as we kind of talk through it. So just use caution when doing that. So we start out by unlocking it, very straightforward. So I unlock it here. Now, this is where having a friend with you, having a buddy is going to help. But if it's just you, you can only effectively use one side of the wind protection. So I come up forward here. I undo this latch. I let this swing down. Now, this is where we're entering the part that we're most vulnerable. So when you're coming up like here, in the event that we had a wind coming up from our backside, it's going to travel up this roof line and it's going to hit that forward wall panel like a brick wall. I've seen where these front wall panels have been fully folded all the way over the tongue because they tried to put it up in high wind. So what this does for you is this allows you to get a nice firm grip on that wall panel, that if a gust of wind comes, it keeps you, gives you something to hold on to. So as we pull up, now we're gonna have to, you can't pull it all the way up with this because you reach a point where you're kind of fighting against the wall panel there. So you get it to that point, and then you need to finish up with your other hand here. Once we're locked in, that momentary vulnerability, or that moment of vulnerability has passed, and we're there. So kind of, I took my time when I was demonstrating that to talk you through it, but that motion needs to be very quick and fluid when you're in that kind of vulnerable state. So from there, I take the wind kit, I lock it back here. That's going to make everything much more secure when you are in that up position. It is locking those two roof panels together. Again, it helps with keeping the water out as well as making things nice and secure. Then I'm just going to come over here to the other side and engage that second roof support. Now, even better, again, if you have a buddy with you, you have a friend, and you guys can both have a handle on it, both put it up together, that's going to, again, make things a lot easier for you. Alrighty, so a lot of this is going to look very familiar, but we're going to go through it anyway. So opening up the door, keep the door in my left hand, go ahead and pop the roof panel up, or the sidewall panel up. At this point, I want to go ahead and lock this door down. And then I poke my head in here. Now, when we're engaging these, the tolerances on these walls aren't extremely tight, and there are seals here on the other panel. So what I do is I take the kind of meat of my hand and I push in on that latch, and then use this hand to kind of engage it. That's going to effectively make things a lot easier for you. And then I go ahead and I lock this front up, again using the meat of my hand to make that happen. I then finish up by locking this one in and then locking this one in. So there we have it. We're set up, we tore it down, we engaged the wind protection, and we explored all the features within the unit. Just about covers it here on the Scout Lite. If you have any questions or concerns, please don't hesitate to give us a call. We really hope you enjoyed the walkthrough. Thank you very much.